I hope everybody is able to hear me. I'm SUBHASHINI, and very good evening to one and all. I think the introductions are done, so I'm not going to consume any time on that. Let me move on to the interesting topic. I think the topic which I see and hear wherever I go from an HR point of view, which is technology. How is really technology enabling business and business growth through talent? I think that's going to be the topic. So I have a few questions here, but please feel free. While we'll just go around, I'm going to be probably allowing you all to just pitch in and speak the wisdom that you have. Let me start with the first question to you, Thiru. We keep talking about technology a lot, and IBM is, one of the technology companies as well. So tell us a little about what are the latest innovations in HR technology that's happening that all of us have to, keep our eyes and ears open.
Thank you, SUBHASHINI. Let's just rewind a little bit, because then it'll give perspective of where we have traversed over time to the latest. I think different companies are in different stages of maturity in technological introduction, transformation. It all started maybe 15 years ago. Predictive analytics, it's been around for a long time. Deep analytics, lots of systems tools. Very isolated use cases. Proactive retention, as an example. Specifically looking at skilling, taxonomy. It all started off like that. And then fast forward 10 years, then this whole digital bots started to come into play. Simple. You ask a question, it'll reference a policy or a process, it'll give you an answer. Straightforward, curated. You ask a question, give you an answer. So that ran for about 5 years. And then over time, with exponential data management and with the various technologies coming into play, then there was a period where we were able to sort of orchestrate various talent data to bring out insight, as in performance data, compensation data, skills data, project data, learning data. So they're all in various systems in HR, not necessarily in one core HRMS. So then we now have technologies that is pulling data from disparate systems and then bringing out one insight. And more recently, in the last 5 years, we've started to have real AI. And when I will say digital assistants, right? Which not only just answer queries, it actually does work for you. For example, a manager who wants to move his or her employees from a manager to another manager. You don't need to go into a core HR system like right. SuccessFactors or Workday, look at the screens, click 6 or 7 buttons, and then make the move. You could go into a one-stop shop. In IBM, we have a solution called Ask HR. It's like really a magical solution. Anything you need to know, you go into that solution, it gives you an instantaneous answer. Not only does it answer, it actually does work. It orchestrates tasks and delivers it to your mailbox, or it makes those changes quite instantaneously. And then in the last 1 year, right, this generative AI technologies that all of us have experienced from the GPT launch to now, in few companies, and we are one of them, we are actually leveraging generative AI for HR processes. And we have actually implemented specific use cases to test the model, to make sure it is 100% accurate, not 99.9, 100% accurate, because we're talking about confidential people-related matters, making sure it is private, confidential, there's no hallucination, and we are seeing some very, very encouraging results. In IBM, as an example, on the latest technology, since that's part of the question, we have a digital twin for every employee. Every data related to the employee is virtually, it's collected and it's data, right? Right from the onboarding data, your past history, what are your current roles, your background information, your performance information, your comp information, your skills information, learning information, your project work information, everything is out there. So we are now able to hyper-personalize, curate specific career journeys based on who you are, your own aspirations. And this data also is now proactively leveraged to inform managers through nudges to say, hey, dear manager, here's somebody you haven't necessarily recognized in a long time. You have budgets left. You might want to recognize somebody. Hey, here's somebody who aspires for this career, but they have to compete with these learning programs, complete learning programs, etc. So there is proactive nudges currently underway as well. So I would say 3 broad categories of technologies. One that gives proactive recommendation with AI. Second, digital labor, which tasks get done. And then assistants, right, which orchestrate tasks. And all of this is only possible when you have your data architecture right. And as long as all, right from hire all the way to retire, you're able to piece in this whole data, you can really transform how work gets done in HR.
No, phenomenal. I think this whole generative AI and what it can do has been absolutely phenomenal. And hyper-personalization is the word and the expectation, right? So we have to accept that there is an expectation out there that we need to match up as well. To your point on this assistance, it's not just being used in the HR parlance for just the managers. I see individuals, employees also now have a personal assistant, right? I mean, you don't need to go and apply leave anymore or know what exactly your leave balance is. You just tell this assistant to do it for you. So I think the level in which it's just getting on from end to end is just phenomenal. I just want to slightly turn this discussion to, fortunately we have our panel members from different industries. We have property, real estate as an industry. We also have pharma as an industry. So I'm going to slightly tweak it, and move it to Shriram Properties, DEBASIS. Talk about the same thing. Erstwhile real estate or property space is something that we all assume that not much of technology adoption is easy or possible. So tell us a little bit about, as a HR head of Shriram Properties, how do you see the adoption to be and what's going on there?
Yeah. So when we talk about technology, because we are talking about 3 sets. One is data, one is digital, and when we're trying to look at from the perspective of the whole things is the systems of experience, because ultimately a kind of a digital system what we're talking about, which will be layering it. Data is my currency, and the whole thing which I'm talking about is design system. What is my architecture, what is my design, where my data and my digital will combine together and give me a meaning. Because ultimately, how do you make a systems more effective? How do you make a process more efficient? So around that, you have different layer of digitizations we are putting it, something to make a scenario of processing that, as Thiru told, something to create a scenario of being predictive that, okay, this is what I'm reading the data, and if this is the trend, this is the pattern, this is how it can look at from a perspective of. So the whole thing is, in terms of a scenario, is around data, around the digital journey, and around the design experience. How do I make my customer experience, or how do I make my employee experience journey? What is my intent? What I need to do around my talent acquisitions? What I need to do around my performance management? So entire process chain which is connecting to an employee. So that part is one side. If I say from a real estate perspective, because one side, I think last 10, 15 years, things have changed a lot. The way a customer experience a product, sitting outside, somebody is in abroad, maybe in US or somewhere, and trying to look at a product experience. It is almost 80-85% near time, maybe down the line with the VR, with the AR. Basically, you can able to simulate the product and you can give the experience. So that is where technology may be coming from an employee perspective. For us in SRIRAM, what we're trying to do is we have SAP Success Factor. We are trying to make this SAC basically software analytics cloud. So the analytics cloud, we are trying to make it more mature, because ultimately how it can help us as an employee, because an organization is, if you look at it from a larger perspective, what is the meaning of an organization? To generate profit and have an equitable distribution of wealth. So that wealth can be financial wealth, wealth can be intellectual wealth, that wealth can be psychosocial wealth, whichever forms it is coming. And it is distributing it to the stakeholder. Employee being a stakeholder, how it is coming back to them. In the whole journey, how the system is helping them out in terms of their growth, their things, and organization at the same time also trying to look at, hey, you have a talent, you have an employee. If you go back and now see, there is a difference between a talent and an employee. It's not that every employee is a talent, but every talent is an employee. At the end of the day, if you are trying to look at. So all this system we're talking around technology is trying to identify the talent piece out of an employee.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So I think that is the journey we're trying to look at. We wanted to give the entire touch point from a pre-hiring to kind of the separations. Can my separation management have the same experience of my joining experience? Maybe on those lines. And that is where I think technology will have a great role. We have our analytics cloud, which is trying to give us data in terms of things. We have our systems getting readiness. It's a process which we are trying to do in a real estate scenario. A lot of things are in the customer side, but when it is coming to HR side, I think there are a lot of things which we'll be touching about in terms of the analytics, looking at the data, because data maturity is one of the areas which we are looking at. And I'm talking about, let's say from an attrition perspective, just an example. Just to understand what is the infantile attritions, people joining your organizations and living within 1 year, and the understanding the pattern. I think technology has a larger play. What are you doing with the kind of hypos, the regrettable attritions? People who are rated 4, 5, and you wanted to do something for them. So those things, I think technology and this kind of system, when we're talking from an analytics perspective, is going to help us a lot, and that is the journey we're trying to go for.
No, I think off late, thank you. I think you touched on the analytics piece as well, which we will come to a short while from now, because I think today's world, analytics and technology are sort of going hand in hand and helping us make some crucial business decisions. But I want to continue the theme of the space that you are in, which is the whole property space, Prabhakar. The question to you is, while all of us understand and know that technology for HR, for employees is the big talk, I just want to slightly tweak the conversation towards the conversation that we were having earlier. How this large labor intense industry, which is also needing immense level of skilling and adoption of technology, can be a challenge. But at the same time, you can use technology to really go all the way down to the lowest level to pick the data that you really want. How can the HR leaders like you, who are also stepping into being the CEO's eyes or the CEO for some period of time, look at this whole transformation and transition to have a very effective business impact and business case? Take us through that a little bit.
Thanks, Subhashini. My name is Prabhakar. I work with Ashwin Sheth Group as the Chief People and Process Officer. What does this mean is basically, I look into the processes where my employee faces a challenge. Everybody talks about systems, processes, technology, but it being a labor-intensive work, the guy who is at the downmost of the ladder is unskilled, can't even speak 4 words of English. But we have to build a building where people like us or better than us will be staying. We are into uber luxury or luxury apartments, where apartments costs are like somewhere around 6 crores starting from until 12 crores, 14 crores. These poor guys would have never stayed or even stayed closer to those places. Now, how do we make them pro for these kind of activities? So there are 2 things. Either we skill them, upskill them, or the second way is to bring them on the place where they do their bit of little bit, and that contributes to the maximum. So what we did is that we implemented Smart App. Now, Smart App is a technology tool which is used to capture the first moment where suppose we are doing a tiling work. The first part of the tiling is done by them. That is laying of either the liquid, which is known as cement, or an epoxy there, and then it's put. After an area is completed, it goes for an RFI, which is request for inspection, where the quality engineers come, site engineers. So here what happens is that the data is not pushed into the system, it's fetched into the system. So the clarity of the data and the authenticity of the data is much higher. And what happens is that this then gets propelled into our PS or the project system, which is at SAP. And hence from the entire billing and all. So if you see the entire value chain of the people who are working with us, few are very good engineers, few are diploma holders, few are maybe graduates, few are maybe 12th pass or 10th pass, and few are not studied, they've never studied even. So supervisors are like 10th pass or not even 8th pass people. Bringing them into a technology-driven culture is where you have to handhold them or give them a tool. And it's always like, what's in it for me? If the guy sitting there down doesn't know what's in it for him or her, will never work for you. For example, I take examples of Zomato, or for that matter, Uber. The number of repetitions that they do and a better delivery that they do, they get better ratings, better hikes, maybe incentives. That's how our labor are doing at the work at the sites. And that's where their drive is. What's in it for me? You call for an Uber, the guy will say, okay, sir, I'm dropping you, and immediately a new work will be assigned. That means the number of repetitions, the number of job or the square feetage that we call in our industry is done. That's where the recognition happens of the laborer and gets higher paid there. The incentives are there. So basically, bringing them to what's required in the system, that is the DNA, which is a spine DNA that we have created, and bridging everyone to that. That's become a more productive environment for us. Yeah. Unlike what we were doing 4 or 5 years back, where technology was like everybody just punching in data on Excel. The last thing which you can do for a management is punch in data in Excel, where everybody put in data, this much was done, that much was done, which was never calibrated, never authenticated. It was just to make the management happy. When I took charge as the CEO of the organization, I made it mandatory that the data was authentic. And being from the HR background, it was all the more important for me that the data is authentic, and I could give a chance to my people down the line that this data is the authentic data and you are working on it. So we can predict when our properties will be completed, when the customers can come in, what will be their experience. And even when we move out of the properties and the defect liability period starts, they still have the data clarity that when was this done, when was the revision of the design, what was put into the design, why these changes were made. So suppose something unseen happens, like a fire breaks or something, then they will know where the main structure is, where are the relief lines, everything will be there in that. I'll give you just a small example. We built Beaumont, which is one of the highest, the most luxurious building in South Mumbai. And there was a small fire. This is the same place where Deepika stays, you guys must be knowing. Within what half an hour's time, the entire fire was doused. That's the kind of calibration which was done and given to the people there who are coming in as customers. That's from my side.
No, thank you so much. I think, Prabhakar, you touched on 2-3 important aspects which I just want to call out for the audience. One is the fact that, yes, we are building everything from an employee perspective, but also considering that there are 3 big impacts that are happening at the same time through technology. One is, as an employee, irrespective of what I have learned and what I know, I'm getting into the same platform in terms of the work that I do. Whether I am, putting a tile together, or I'm in the reception, or an IT person, having done. I think the whole skilling level, the level basing is happening at the same time, which helps the middle managers to earn some time back to do other things and not sitting and doing these data entry activities, because you're directly fetching the data.
Absolutely, sir. That's what we are discussing. Yeah. These middle managers have to be made the managers of next level. That is the leaders of tomorrow. Absolutely. They can't be just doing a routine baker's job as we were discussing in the restaurants. Yeah. That job will become definitely redundant, as it has become in your IT industry. The middle managers are becoming redundant because you don't need to push people. It's the system which is pulling them or pushing them towards the access.
So I love this idea of smart apps fetching data rather than keying in data, which has been traditionally the way we have been doing. The last thing that I also want to call out in this conversation is how leadership is able to take all these, and there is time given back to all levels of employees to do the things that really matters to them, which moves them up in the ladder. So we have talked a lot about technology and data, so I want to redirect this question to you on data. So let's talk a little bit, about data and data analytics. How is it really impacting And how is it really making a difference in the HR world today? Bringing data. Talk a little bit about that, Ameet.
I think a lot. If you look at the whole revolution of technology that has happened is primarily to bring efficiency. The idea was to erase off all the transactions, look at the inside. People who have been there in the morning, I think Nathan spoke about a very important aspect. He said, you know what, you have a whole lot of data available in your organization. What do you do with that, right? Taking a receipt from a restaurant and then converting into a data analytics, trying to bring in the insight in terms of how does the customer behave, what kind of foods that goes in and sells high. Likewise, within the organization, earlier if you look at it, primary source of our data used to be exit interviews, manpower demographic data, through which we used to do analytics. Today, what do? You have dashboards for everybody, right? Now, what does it help? It gives you an informed decision. THIRU spoke about predictive analytics. Predictive analytics is nothing but, you know the decision in advance so that you can ring fence. These are some of the advantages that is coming from the technology and investing, which is helping us to, look at which are the risk employee that you have, whom you want to retain and don't want to lose. So you do that initiative before the action actually happens. You can also look at your traditional exit data and look at in terms of how does it makes an impact from a negative or not so negative perspective in your culture. So what kind of changes you want to bring in your culture? If you look at your survey data, the employee satisfaction survey, or a lot of company does a pulse survey or a GPTW insights, what do you do with that, right? So these are data that gives you insight, which basically ask you that what are the actionables you would like to do and initiate in your organization where you have a business impact. So I think to sum it up, data gives you insight which can help you to bring in business impact, and that's, I think, is today's HR's primary KPI.
Yeah, so a great point. I think the role of HR, we keep talking about the changing environment and the change that's happening in the role of HR is one of the biggest pieces is, of course, one, how do you use technology to your best advantage, but how do you really interpret data? Now there is overwhelming data around you. Which data is relevant? How do you pull that data? How do you connect that back into the business outcomes? And really go after that rather than looking at the innumerable data that is available around you. I think that's also a skill that the HR leaders of today have to sort of possess.
I think very important question. So if you look at, data are in different forms. Let's take an example. If you want to do skill development, then you need performance management data to be analyzed in that way. You need to look at in terms of how is the person performing against the KPI, look at both competency and skill, where does the person fare. So you basically need to segment it in terms of what kind of results do you want. Similarly, Debasis spoke about the onboarding or a recruitment experience. So if you have to stop the infant attrition, you have to understand what's causing the infant attrition. And then look at the insight and try and do things to improve those, those aspects which impacts the infant attrition. So you have to pick those segments which is paining you, creating again, I'm using the same word, business impact, because that's the whole story. If you know which are the pain points of the business impact, try and get that through all those data points. Your source of data points are what? Yeah. Surveys, feedbacks, or in terms of your entire AI-driven services that you create in HR, whether it is recruitment, onboarding, performance management, training, whatever it may be. These are all source of data. Yeah. So segment it, try and figure it out, what are the pain areas of business impact, and then use that data to create the insight. Yeah, no,
I think it's the HR competencies that are required to really be making an impact to the business is, of course, changing, no doubt. But the pace with which it is changing is just extraordinary. To some extent, it is even scary. So I am going to actually, move with that to a question. But before that, I don't know how many of you were there in this, GHRC conference where Peter Diamandis was there talking about 20 big things that are happening in the world in the advent of data and, of course, more importantly, technology. One of the things which was edging to more scary things, but at the same time made me think that is it real, is the point that he made in one of it was that we are in this world at this point in time going through technological transformation in the specific space of genetics, which is actually going to increase the longevity of people who are living in the world. And to that, he made a comment, which is still, remains in my mind. People who are living in this world at this point in time have a great opportunity, and a 100% opportunity, some of them, to really be living 150 years or 200 years like a whale. Now, that was mind-boggling to hear. Of course, it is scary. Of course, I don't want to be living 150 years or 200 years. Many of you may not, but some of us may be. And the question was asked more philosophically to him, why would somebody want to live so many years and all that? But if you have a purpose, you want to live eternally. But that is the level in which technological interventions are happening. And, there were 20 different points. I don't want to touch that. It's a big topic on its own. One of it was, imagine your hand gets cut. The power of this genetic transformation that is being looked at is that you can grow your hand, just your heart, but for brain. He was saying that but for brain, everything else, and it is not future, it's happening as we speak, which is a tremendous push, which is scary push as well. Now with that scary point, I want to come to THIRU and talk about, THIRU, tell us a little bit about, we talked about how far we have come. The last 5 years, tremendous changes, the way we have looked at things, everybody around us, right? Now, what is in store for future, the likely future? I know that, IBM is also looking at, every technology company is looking at what next than what is already. Generative AI very slowly will become a past. So tell us a little bit about, and any of you can feel free to add to that, but I want to start with you, THIRU. A little bit about foresight, hey, here are a couple of other things that are happening. If not this, all of us living for 150, 200 years as well.
Look, the rate and pace is so fast. So when you say next 5 years, it's very hard to actually fathom. But here and now, right, I think we're just getting started with generative technologies. I don't see this deployed at scale yet. Because one, we got to have a certain responsible deployment of this technology.
Right.
There has to be a certain level of regulatory framework,
right,
AI ethic frameworks. So until those fundamentals get fully plumbed in, it won't scale. Now, I believe, from an HR point of view, I mean, we have a mantra called eliminate, simplify, and then automate. Exponentially simplify processes that impact employees, managers, and more importantly, also for the HR practitioners. Because, many a time we forget the profession. We always work for client stakeholders. So the jobs that our teams actually undertake will move to a very higher level of order, higher value work.
Right.
The grunt work, the busy work, the transactional work will go away. So things that we don't like to do will most likely be automated or eliminated because there's something else which is, a machine will sort of do that aspect of the job, rightfully so. Then the teams will most likely be focusing on coaching, leadership development, advisory, complex problem solving, labor relations, things which requires human management. But I think now we are now moving to a space where it's voice-enabled support. So you could ask, I need to get this done. Can I get my last 5 salary slips? You talk to a system. 3 minutes later, you have it. Because it has already authenticated who you are based on a certain KYC and based on a natural language processing recognition that the system has. Rather than going to a computer, typing something, you speak, it recognizes, and it delivers the service. So to that level of simplistic service, we will see this world move to already by the end of the year. So voice recognized support. Second, I think this whole, for employers like us, we have a large number of workforce. They're not necessarily sitting in one place. We have folks working in a port, for example, servicing a client. We have employees in the main IBM offices. We have people in so many client locations all over the world. So the experience that a remote employee who's far away versus an employee sitting in the headquarters, it should not be any different from each other. So the engagement medium will be super mature, that the experience that all employees get is customized, standardized, personalized, and secure. And I think it'll come down to simplicity. The last thing I think we're going to get to this thing is, once we have this whole generative technologies at scale, which brings out internal policy and processes, interlocked with the external data available. You know, I mean, for some of you who are in the technology space, there are some 200 million parameters that go into building a certain model. So that level of intelligence, when it starts to contextualize the ask, it will give you very trusted advisory, including, you know, deep employee relations related advisory. How do I handle a difficult employee? How do I factor in certain labor regulations of a particular country? Because in an IT environment, we have managers maybe in Madrid managing teams in India, or a manager in India managing employees from Tokyo. It's a global world that we work in today. So for him or her to have that level of trusted advisory moment in time based on a specific circumstance, you prompt it. It's basically a little bit of prompt engineering. You prompt the system. This is the situation I'm in. This is the context of the employee. What should I do? And then you have that generate a recommendation on incredible advice, which factors in the wisdom of all aspects with the right level of ethics, human empathy, and labor regulations, and gives you that instantaneously. And that typically would otherwise take maybe 3 or 4 days, because you have to consult with that country's legal, that country's labor relations.
And the biases that come along with it.
And the various biases that come with it. So I think we're slowly getting to that phase of science fiction, generative AI. I'm I'm going to say it's a huge simplification, which people will take for granted very soon. Because they will talk to a system, they'll get the answer. There is no dependency in between. In order to get there, everybody should make a start. You start small, and slowly, you know, with the vision that you want to go, you'll transform the work. But without making the start, if you're skeptical, then you will lag behind.
No, I think it's a great point, and we are coming to the close of the session. I just want to call out one thing, that because you said this, we rolled out in our company a coach bot, THIRU, right? Now, the coach bot basically coaches you on different scenarios. We have 82 different scenarios, starting from a point where I can go and ask, instead of calling my manager who is busy, who doesn't have the time for me, I can go to this bot, and on my cab, I'm going to have a performance conversation with with somebody reporting into me. It's going to be a tough conversation. The bot tweaks and responds to you in conversational manner how tough the conversation can be, and what you're saying, how it can be tweaked. So I keep making it more and more difficult by saying, make it difficult, make it difficult. It keeps responding to me by making the opponent, which is the employee that I'm going to meet, make more difficult this conversation. So I am fairly prepared by the time I go. Now, the scary thing, which actually goes back again to you know, all of your points, is that today the younger generation has all the information that they need from a technology standpoint in the tips of their hands, more than we know. The wisdom that we carry is the one that they look up to us for. Now, if an AI coach bot is also going to be giving that wisdom, what will they look up to managers for? I want to leave this thought and question to the HR leaders, managers, individuals. Why would somebody respect us? Why would somebody come to us? What more will be expected of us? That's really the next level of thinking it's going to. And it just, you know, compliments, you know, thank you so much. I just want to, you know, say that it's been wonderful conversation. Thank you. And I think, you know, thanks, you know, to the team which has organized this by bringing completely different industry segments. I think that's very, very important. Otherwise, we tend to, when technology comes in, we tend to get into just IT folks, and, you know, the questions are tend towards that. But I think every other industry is being absolutely enabled to exponential growth through technology and data. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Yeah, I hope that it's open for questions. Yeah.
No, is there any questions?
There is one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can somebody pass on the mic?
Yeah.
It's fine, I'm audible.
Yeah.
So whatever question you framed in the last, I want answers for that from all.
Sorry, whatever questions I frame.
Why will somebody go to the...
Oh yeah, good. That's a good one. So see, basically the question is the question that I asked. That's not fair, but still, the question that I asked comes back to the panel. Why would somebody go to a leader if everything is going to come?
The answer is very simple. I think Thiru also touched upon. Technology is helping you only on transactional aspect, not the human intelligence, not the emotional intelligence. You will still go to the manager for all the emotional set of decisions. You will still go as far as the subject intelligence is concerned. Like, I'll give you an example. You may use a PI or a predictive analytics to create a successful profile for the role, which anybody in the self-service can actually get to know that if I have to be successful in this role, what do I need to do? So it will give you basis your current KPIs versus the successful KPI delivery requirement, and you can have. And you can say that then I don't need to go to the manager to find out, okay, what do I need to improve upon? But if I have to travel that path, AI can give you direction, but AI cannot give you the coaching. For coaching, you still need to go to the manager.
So I think,
You
sorry,
said
we'll
it
hear from
rightly,
you.
basically, because see, anything and everything which is repetitive, which is manual in nature, maybe today or tomorrow it can be kind of replaced by technology, whether it's whichever forms it may be coming. Even if when somebody invented fire, it was a technology. Somebody invented paneer out of milk, it was a technology at some point in time. If you look at on those lines.
Right.
So we are talking about the kind of things basically. So everything can be replaced, but what about empathy? What about the perspective of, as you rightly said, basically the emotional facet? Because we are living creatures within our organizations. We are driven by behaviors. A technology can predict the patterns in terms of through the data lens or through the perspective of what the intent the organization wants to do. But that journey has to be traveled through people and by the people. I think that's where the HR folks will come into play, I think.
I will have a different opinion on this, let me tell you. We are so used to structured organizations that everybody looks for a manager, then a manager up, then a manager two. Why don't you look at an organization where your goals are clear to you, your targets are clear to you, and your system puts in your own targets? Tomorrow, if you want to have an answer for something, it's available there. You don't need to go to your manager. I'm strictly of the opinion, is what is that manager going to do to you? He is coming 4 years, 5 years earlier educated to you. Today, the education which the children are getting today are far better than what we got 30 years back. So we are going to teach them or tell them that this is the box in which you have to perform. Let them flourish from where they are. They don't need to be managed, coached. Yes, emotional connect, I agree with all of you that emotional connect needs to be there. But give them the freedom. They perform better when they are free to perform. They will have a better platform to work on. We have to appreciate them. And it's not always a structured organization. It will break in some time. You will see systems breaking that way. That's how organizations like Google and all are moving towards. Yes, emotional touch, you go and place something and you will have emotional touch. You have a family, everything is there. I'm a little different on this opinion, but I believe structures make people dependent on something. Rather, a free environment is something where the employees or the people need to grow, because our mind is free. It's metaphysics that we are talking about. It's free to connect to anybody. Why do you want me to connect only to my manager? I wouldn't like to do that. That's my opinion.
Oh, that's great. So he's replacing the org chart of managers with machines or anything else. That's a great thought, right? There is nothing required there. I know we are in the end of session, but Thiru, you want to...
I'll wrap it up in 7 words. I think my friends here have said, tasks will most likely be replaced. Expertise most likely will not for some time.
Right.
I'm saying it carefully, sometime.
Yes.
The technologies that we're seeing at some point will also start to deliver expertise.
Right.
And at that point, then we'll have to challenge ourselves to move to the higher order of work.
Great thought. I think this is a great conversation. Bang on. So thank you so much, team. I think it was wonderful. And we'll give it back to you.